For our first topic this week, the ever popular G2A is back in the news. And G2A has certainly become a quote unquote favorite of a lot of independent developers. If you don't know who they are a quote unquote gray market site that allows people to buy and sell game keys. And of course, they take a share of the profit for each transaction, and they have become very much hated among independent developers. And for various reasons. One of the big ones, obviously, has been the fact that they don't care where the keys come from. Whether it is bought legitimately or not, as long as you have keys, they'll be willing to let you post on their site, take their profit, and so on. And this has led to many issues of developers having keys stolen, usually by fraudulent credit cards. Those people selling them on G2A, the credit card company obviously issuing a chargeback and then penalizing the developer. And of course, the hacker as well as G2A get away scot-free. And they even went so far a few years ago to have a G2A shield, which you could buy for your account, and it would protect you from fraudulent keys. And yeah, that doesn't sound very skeevy or very murky there. I don't know what else to tell you. But the reason why they are in the news came from a tweet by a Mike Rose, who is the founder of, I think they're the publisher, No More Robots. And he was talking about, I'm just going to read this very quickly, that he saw sponsor ads for his game that they published, Ascenders, which we played on stream. It was by Rage Squid. And those ads were basically pointing people to G2A. And they had obviously no connection to that company. And he said something that a lot of developers have echoed. And that is, if you want to play my game for free, or if you want to play my game just pirated, don't give G2A money. And this led to a lot of fury over G2A. They try to come out and defend themselves. One of the favorite ones, I'm sure, Char, you're going to love this, was when they said, if we don't allow you to sell your keys, somebody else would. That was their whole defense for having G2A. And there's now a change.org petition that was being signed by developers to get them to stop selling independent games. And it has caused a lot of discussions regarding not only G2A, but even just the very act of giving out game keys. And this is something that, of course, affects me, affects anyone who covers games for a living. I'll go over how that affects me in a minute, but Shark, as our resident independent developer on tonight, I guess why don't you tell everyone how much you love G2A as a business?
Oh, it's my favorite charcoal gray retailer.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so the issue I see with, or rather, so first off, I don't mind if people resell my keys. You know what I mean? If somebody comes and legitimately buys a key, like they see like Chromasia's on sale for 40% off,
Yeah.
kind of thing. They go in there and they buy a bunch of keys, and then they go and sell them on G2A or whatever platform for 20% off, basically. And then they get that extra 20% profit minus whatever G2A gets, which is probably about 8% of that. So they get like 12% kind of thing. Like that doesn't bother me. I'm perfectly fine with that kind of thing. But the where it becomes unfine is where, and this is from what I understand, a majority of where G2A comes from is people using fraudulent, stealing credit card numbers and using those to buy games, and then we lose that money because credit cards steal it. Credit cards get that money back, but the keys are still out there.
Yep.
But at this point, the keys are probably already possessed by somebody that paid legitimate money for it. So now we're stuck with, which way do we want to be screwed?
Yep.
Do we want to be screwed by money, by just not having all this money that we legitimately earned, or do we want to be screwed by reputation by reclaiming all these keys that were illegitimate and having all these people not like us because we took away the key that they paid legitimate money for that we were not paid legitimate money for?
Mm-hmm.
It's a lose-lose situation on those cases. And then there's the other cases where people on Keymailer and I forget the other sites that are like Keymailer.
Keymailer. Oh, I know it off the top of my head. I'm on Evolve Terminals, but they're a more reputable site. But there's a third one.
Yeah,
Oh
that third one
no.
is. Anyway, there's several
Hmm.
sites like that, and those sites, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them, just require nothing but you make some kind of content and get at least some kind of followers, some kind of this, that, or the other kind of thing. Just bare minimum requirements, and then there's like no requirement for if you claim the key, what you do with it.
Yep.
It doesn't say, there's nothing that keeps you from selling it on G2A. There's nothing that keeps you from just getting it to play and don't ever care about, making content on it. Not that you should be forced to make content for every key, but
Mm-hmm.
you should at least be forced to make content with most of the keys
Yeah.
because you shouldn't just be getting keys to play. But like if a game is like really bad and you're like, you thought it was going to be really good and it just, just does not go well on your channel, like, yeah, you shouldn't have to put that up.
Mm-hmm.
But at that point, you should have your key, you should have to put in a notice and get
Yeah.
your key revoked so that that's no longer your game kind of thing.
I have a question for you, Shar. This is kind of like
Mm-hmm.
this is one of those things I, as somebody who does content, I'm not too privy to. But when you do request a key to be revoked, like what does that actually like entail? Like obviously that means like as the person who has a key that I can't play that game anymore. But I guess from a consumer point of view or from a content point of view, why should somebody do that if that key is already locked to somebody's account?
Well, number one is you can't just revoke any key. You have to actually know the key number. So you have to know the key, which means that you personally requested keys from Steam. They gave you a list, and then you know exactly who you sent it to, kind of thing. You put these keys on Keymailer, you put these keys on this site, you sent these keys to these, directly to these content creators or, this friend or this tester or whatever kind of thing. So at that point, exactly in theory who's got the key. So if somebody if somebody promised to test for you and then they don't follow through, you may want to revoke a key. If if a content creator promises up and down and that they're going to make all kinds of content for you and then doesn't do anything, you might want to revoke it, kind of thing.
And for people watching, just to clarify, that the developer themselves, do they have to actually keep track of all the keys, or does like the third party site like Steam, Humble, whoever, you can keep track, like they will provide with a list of all the keys that have been generated?
As far as I know, the only keys that the developers get to get track of is the keys that we request.
Okay.
These are like free keys, basically,
Yeah.
for our use, whatever we want to do with them, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like if somebody just buys a key directly off of Steam, as far as I know, there is no way to even find out what the key number is, more or less anything else.
And I would assume that's probably because of the fact that if you're buying it directly through Steam, they're locking that down to your account. Like, it's not the
Mm-hmm.
same case. And for people who don't know what we're talking about, especially if there's any console gamers watching, when you buy, like, when I request a key from a developer, they basically give me a, they obviously give me a key, and that key is kind of like a blank check in the sense that until it gets associated to an account, is a free agent. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, if I take that key, and obviously I'm not doing that because that's very malicious on somebody's part. But if I say I get a key from a developer, I could give that to anyone with a Steam account, and that would be their copy. And then once it gets assigned to that Steam account, it's locked in. Like, outside, like, they cannot then take that key and sell to somebody else. But when you buy a game, but whenever you buy a game yourself off of whether it's Steam, Itch, Humble, any digital store, you don't see your key, or you normally don't see it unless you look into the account, because it becomes attached to your own personal account. So you can't take that key and say, well, I'm just going to take it off my account and give it to my friend, or I'm going to sell it somewhere else.
Yeah, that's like the difference when you go to make a purchase on Steam. You're buying this for yourself or for friends.
Yes.
If you buy it for yourself, then it's just attached straight to your account. And if you're buying it for a gift, it gives you a code.
Yeah. And that code, and again, obviously, that code is a one-time deal. You can't give it to 20 different people and they each access the game off of that one code.
Well, you could, but only one person, the first person who gets it, is the one that gets it.
Mm-hmm.
The other 19 people will be disappointed.
Yeah. And as we said a few minutes ago, with this idea of, again, like how these keys get sent out, get done like this, another case that we've seen, and this kind of leads into the discussion about how it affects developers, is the use of Humble Bundle, and how many developers these days have sworn off of being put into bundles. And again, the whole point of the Humble Bundle was a way to get a bunch of keys of games very, very cheap. Obviously, those proceeds can go to charity, they can go to the developer, but most often, when you put your game in a Humble Bundle, you are not expecting to make a profit off of it. Like, it's just not going to happen. Like, if you're giving out 50 keys at 5 cents a key, and that's split 4 different ways, no, you're not making a living off of that. But what many people have done, and using sites like G2A, I think there may be a few other ones that are kind of like on the down low there, but they would go into a Humble Bundle and say, I'm going to buy 80 copies of so-and-so, 2 cents a key. Wow, I'm really breaking the bank on that. But then I take those keys, I take them to a site like G2A, whatever, I sell them for, I don't know, could be a dime, could be 25 cents, it could even be a few dollars. And I'm making money off of that for very little investment on my part. And now all those keys are now out on the market for people to buy. And this, of course, raises a very big problem. How is a developer supposed to make a living if everybody is buying their game off of these gray market sites?
Yeah. I think that's more of an issue with them agreeing to be on Humble Bundle kind of thing. Or at least under those terms. Like, you have to negotiate better terms with Humble Bundle or something. Or just not agree to it. But with Humble Bundle, generally what you do is, you remember how I told you request a bunch of keys? That, from my understanding, is how you do it. You request like a 10,000 keys to give to Humble Bundle kind of thing. And then you would take those list of keys and you would send that to Humble Bundle. So you would technically be able to revoke all those.
And I just want to say, and I want to spend a few minutes talking about the whole idea of revoking, because you brought that up earlier, Shark. But that's also a very big point in terms of the content and consumer side of things. But yeah, as you said, like, when it comes to these bundles, and I actually want to go back to what you said at the start about the whole act of buying or selling keys. And I agree with you about that. I do think you should be allowed to sell a key, like, in the sense that it's a one-to-one transaction, meaning I sell that key to you, my copy's gone. And there's no problem with that. And we have seen discussions, I think this was in Europe, about the very act of being able to buy and sell keys through a secondhand market like that. And I agree with you. Like, I think that is perfectly fine. I'm sure a lot of developers would agree that, or would agree so.
At least with unused keys, anyway.
But again, the problem comes in when you have it kind of being legitimized by sites like G2A. And again, the very fact, as you said, that you don't know who is getting a copy of your key. And I've gotten plenty of keys from developers I've done my best to try and, get coverage on. Sometimes it does fall through the cracks. And unfortunately, that's just the nature of when you're trying to cover, 30 games a day kind of thing. But there are plenty of people, and I've seen the horror stories of developers posting tweets of emails from people saying, I like your game. Send me 30 keys for a giveaway, and I will cover it on your channel.
Oh yeah, there's tons of those. I got an email like that almost 3 times a day for I think almost a year before Chrome Asia even came out, and about a year after it came out.
Mm-hmm.
There's tons of scammers out there that will say they're some kind of famous YouTuber and whatnot, and the easiest way to verify it is have them give them a link to their YouTube channel, and then go to the YouTube channel and just contact them there. And if they don't respond, it's clearly not them,
Yeah. Or even just if they do post a link to like a Twitch or whatever, just look at the site for like a few minutes. See like have they actually uploaded anything lately? Was their last upload 3 years ago, kind of thing.
Yeah. And the bad thing about Keymailer is that they will not tell you any of that information unless you pay them an absorbent amount of money. And absorbent for me because I'm broke, but for normal people it's probably not all that much. But the whole thing about having to pay, as a game creator, you got to pay Keymailer $20, $50, $100, $200 a month to give away copies of your game to people who may or may not do anything with it, just to see like their info, see if they're legit. Like, because if you do not pay, there's still a free way to use it, but you can only see like follower counts on YouTube. They won't tell you their YouTube channel name. They won't tell you anything. And the only ones that I could, legitimize was people who made a Keymailer account that had the same name as their YouTube channel. So I would look them up and see if their names matched and if I could find them, and if I could, and I figured they might be a good pick, I would issue a key. But most of them did not match, and most of the ones that did match wasn't really good. Yeah, not unless you pay a good bit of money to actually see that information. They do give you 10 for free, but they don't tell you that they're giving you 10 for free until you run out of those 10. And then it's like, I was just clicking on them, looking at them, and I was like, okay, that's that YouTube, that's that YouTube. I didn't even look at them, to see, I didn't even look into them. I just, clicking to see what, function kind of thing, what the function of the site was. And then I hit the 10th one, and it's like, or the 11th one, it's like, you're out of quicks. It's like, I was never told I had any kind of limited amount.
Oh, man.
I didn't record any information or anything. I didn't do any of this. And, like, it was just all gone before I even knew anything. And it was like, okay.
Yeah. But you touched on something very important, Shark, that I hope everybody watching pay attention to. And that is that for sites like Keymailer, G2A, and so on, the work or the risks are put on the developer's end. And very rarely is it on the consumer. And that is a very big point about the discussion about G2A, and even just about, what it means to cover these games or get keys. Because as you said, as you said, the start, Shark, that was easy. That wasn't that hard, easy to say there. But as you said, that for a lot of developers, they are put into a lose-lose position when we're dealing with this stuff. On one hand, as you said, you can be the nice developer. Whenever somebody sends you a key, you give it to them. You're trying to be consumer friendly. But then if those keys get taken to a site like G2A or whatever, and now you're losing money, you're now put into that position of who gets screwed in the end? Do I not do anything about it, and therefore I take the charge back and I'm now less? Or do I revoke those keys But that key could be in the hands of somebody who did spend money. And this is the problem, and this is why I think a lot of people don't, or a lot of developers hate G2A, is that they've done a really good job of trying to sell themselves as being legitimate. For those of you who watch Twitch streamers and YouTubers, you have probably seen at least a couple of them have a G2A brand or banner while they're streaming. And they did a very big push. I think this was like 2-3 years ago, like when the first, very negative stuff came out about them. I know Tiny Build, that publisher, they despise G2A. I think they had gotten into a whole argument at GDC. But they did a very big marketing push to try and remove all the negative stuff about them. So you'll see people who will cover them or will sponsor or be advertised by them. I've even received a few emails from them with game wisdom over the years, and I never even bother replying to them because I know what they are. But it's this issue, and this could be we could easily segue into something about YouTubers and Twitch streamers, about this idea of how easy it is to sell yourself as being legitimate. And is a very big problem when it comes to the consumer side. Because like you said, what if somebody legitimate buys your game, or a YouTuber buys your game off G2A, you revoke their key, and then they go on a big rant about it, and then some other YouTuber or Twitch, puts up a video or a attack piece saying, developer hates consumers, revoke keys. They're not going to say anything about the fact that it was on G2A or anything like that. And you're now, again, you're being made out to be the bad guy, and G2A kind of gets away scot-free.
Yep, and it's a choice to which you have a choice which way you want to be screwed over, but you're going to be screwed over one way or the other. Yeah. You're either out the money, or somebody's going to make you out to be the bad guy. Mm-hmm. You're either the bad guy, or you're broken, possibly going out of business. Yeah. And the thing is, it's not even just key mailer and free keys that you give out that this is an issue with. The other issue is like credit card fraud. People will fraud the credit cards and get in there and buy all these keys and whatnot. For full price or whatever. It doesn't matter what the price is. They don't care because it's fraudulent credit card. They can max out whatever they want. The thing is that part right there, there's a very easy solution to that. I mean, it's not 100% solution, but it's a very easy solution, and it's done by Steam. Steam just sees that you're buying games. They don't let you buy more games than what exists in your library. So if you have, besides one, a minimum of one. So if you have 0 games in your library, you can only buy one game. And the only way you're going to be able to buy 50 keys to a game is if you have 50 games in your library, and if there's a fraudulent credit card report, account banned. They lose their entire library. And, that would stop a vast majority of it. That would, and see, that's stuff that even developers that have access to revoke keys, we couldn't revoke those if we wanted to. There is nothing we can do. Only thing we can do is we have had our choice made for us. We're going to be screwed over money-wise on that one. There is no choice on which way we want to be screwed over on those. And that is something Steam could do very, very easily. But, Steam has an issue with not caring.
Mm-hmm. And that's probably a topic a little too big to get into for this one. But Mike asked a really good question. I wasn't sure about this myself. Is G2A only a problem for Steam, or does it affect other digital stores?
I don't know. I would probably think that it would affect other stores too, but to a much less degree, because Steam is careless. Most of the others aren't.
I would imagine, any place that allows for digital keys to be added to accounts, this could theoretically be used for. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure on that one myself, Mike, either.
I mean, Humble Bundle is just a reseller for Steam, so any keys got off of there, it would just impact Steam kind of thing. So, like, I mean, you could sell a bunch of keys on Humble Bundle, and then somebody could credit card fraud Humble Bundle, and then get you double kind of thing.
And I was just going to say, like, and for people who don't know what we're talking about in terms of chargebacks and, like, what that actually means, what we're referring to is that somebody gets their credit card stolen. That person takes their credit card and then, buys whatever the hell they want with it. In this case, they could buy 50, 100, 500 copies of a video game. Those copies get taken to that account. The person, gets their credit card bill saying, why do I have $800 to some, video game site or whatever on here? I call the credit card, I tell them my card was stolen or whatever. They report it as fraud. And then what happens is that the credit card company will go after whoever basically took that transaction. In some cases, it would be Steam or the digital store. But if the developer is selling the game on their own site, they will go after them and say, you took this money illegally, you need to pay it back. And sometimes, I think, this one I'm not 100% sure of, but I think there's also a penalty or a fee that gets added onto the chargeback for the credit card company having to deal with that. So what ends up happening, as Shark said, is that you are out the keys, and you're out the money, but then you're also out, whatever other additional penalties or fees that credit card company throws at you. And you can't say no to that, or they're going to hold you for that. They're going to come after you.
Well, actually, you can kind of say no to that, but only in a limited fashion. And it doesn't have to be stolen. You can still, you could legitimately buy something and do a chargeback, but there has to be a legitimate reason.
Yes. So Mike asks, is G2A a dev problem of not being able to manage their keys? And this is one thing I know a lot of consumers have said, like whenever people talk about G2A, or again about that managing of where these keys go, and that is a good segue into talking about the YouTuber and that side of things. But that's a really good segue again talking about this perception of what it means to use these sites, and again how this affects people who cover games for a living. Like for myself, when I'm trying to get in touch with developers, it can be very hard to convince someone to send you a copy of your game. Again, I think a lot of consumers think that this is just some magical thing. Like I just email someone, they just give me a key. This is the other popular one. I'm sure you've heard of this many times, Shark. That a developer just hits one key on their keyboard and they get 5,000 keys they can send out to whoever they want.
Oh, no, that's definitely not true. But yeah, I've heard that one before. The thing is, especially now that Steam, quote unquote, tightened down with asset flips and stuff, now you have to, there was always a request process, but now they're more strict with it in a way that really doesn't hurt asset flippers, but really hurts other developers, to where you request a key, a certain amount of keys, and when you request this keys, Steam has to go through an approval process to whether they actually approve that request for keys. You have to give a reason for it, and that reason has to line up with how many keys you got. And I had an issue with it because I requested, I think, 20 keys or something for testers early on, and then I was going to go to content creators, and and I also needed some final testers kind of thing for some fresh eyes on it. So I requested another 50 keys, and I said this is going to go out to content creators and a few final testers kind of thing. And Steam took, I think, a week and a half before they approved that. The 20 got approved within less than 24 hours, but the 50 took a week and a half, and I was sitting there in trouble, kind of thing, not being able to do what I needed to do.
Yeah. And Mike asks, so Steam doesn't cancel the chargeback keys. And again, this is the very tough part when we talk about how this impacts the consumer and content side of things. Because like we said earlier, when somebody buys a key off of G2A, that is technically a legitimate purchase. That is, somebody saying, I have so and so money. I want this copy of this game. And what ends up happening, of course, is that, as Shark said, you run into that case of somebody gets burned. You either get burned by the bank or you get burned by the consumer. And yeah, like, I don't think Steam, like, I've heard rarely that they will cancel those keys. Is that right?
As far as I know, they don't. As far as I know, they never cancel chargeback keys, which they should,
Mm-hmm.
and they should cancel them right away. You know, like the instant it's a chargeback kind of thing. Because
Yeah.
I mean, and they shouldn't allow like 500 keys to be sold at the same time. They should attach a card with an
Mm-hmm.
account, you know, with their Steam account or whatever. And if there's a fraudulent charge on there, they either, you know, like completely ban the account, or they put the chargeback amount on there and they have to pay that off before they're able to get back, you know.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, Steam's already got a refund policy, so there's no reason to do a chargeback.
Yeah.
And it's even, you know, like, you know, you can even go beyond their terms that's in their thing, and they're still forgiving. You know, like I think I had a game refunded that was like I had like 2 hours and
Mm-hmm.
30 minutes on, but I had only actually played it for like 10 minutes. It was really crap, and it kept on running in the background. And Steam's like, we'll refund it.
Yeah. They refunded a game that I did last night. I refunded that My Friend Pages because I was already getting close to that 2 hour mark, and I think I saw everything there was to that game. But that's actually a segue into our second topic we'll come back to later. But again, like, I think ultimately a lot of this stems from the fact that the consumer is always like, I'm not sure the right term I want to use for this, but like it never really seems to impact things from the consumer side. It always seems to come back to the developer, who's the one who's kind of left holding the bag.
Yeah, it really doesn't affect the consumer. Well, it can affect the consumer in the revoking of keys, but that's only if the developer knows the key number, which is
Yeah.
only if they basically gave you the key personally.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And
Um,
go ahead.
you really, you know, it doesn't affect Steam. It doesn't affect G2A. It doesn't affect the scammer who's selling on
Humble
G2A.
bundle, whatever.
Yeah, it doesn't affect any of them. The ones that it
Mm-hmm.
affects every time, though, is the developer. The developer takes the blame for everybody, and the developer is the only one that has absolutely nothing to do with any of it.
Yep. Oh yeah, and again, like as we were saying earlier, like this is how it impacts things when we talk about like YouTube and content creators. That they can, I'm sure plenty of people have bought keys off of sites like G2A or Gray Market, stuff like that. If those keys get revoked, they can scream and holler at the developer, give me a key, I bought your game, why can't I play it? It doesn't work. They make an attack piece or they go to another big YouTuber and say that. And it leads into this cascading nightmare of a situation. But
Mm-hmm.
there are just plenty of people out there who are more than fine with doing that. And as a developer, it makes it very hard to trust the people that are contacting you for keys and such. Again, like when we talk about putting your game on Steam or a major store, one of the things that's good about that is they handle a lot of the stuff for you. Like again, if you're buying a game directly through Steam, they're not going to take any crap from somebody, saying it's a fraudulent card. They will go after that person. But if they bought that game off of Humble or G2A or anything else, they're not really going to do much about that. And as you said earlier, Char, like Steam doesn't really care unless it directly impacts Steam.
Mm-hmm. And it's just a situation that is almost, or pretty much always a negative for a developer. Not always, because I mean there are the legitimate people who buy keys like when they're on sale and then resell them, the legit keys. But those are far and few in between. Most of them are, either content creators, that are lying to get keys,
Hmm.
you know, which makes YouTubers and stuff look like frauds.
Yeah, that's really great for me. Yeah.
Yeah. And then and then there's the other way where it's just fraudulent charges on your credit cards, and but both of those fall back on the developer, and the developer had nothing to do with it. And the the only legitimate way is when they buy them on sale and resell them, but that's probably like probably way less than 1%. It's probably like 0.001% or something,
Hmm.
ridiculously small.
Yeah.
At least on G2A. I don't know
Hmm.
about other platforms, but like I think the amount of legitimate keys on G2A, no matter what they say, what their
Hmm.
marketing department says, I think is in the very low, less than a percentage kind of thing.
Yeah. And again, like when we look at these cases of games, like of these keys being sold, for a lot of people would, I think, agree with being able to buy and sell keys if it was that, I sell you my key, that's a one time deal. It's not like I sell you my key, then I sell to this guy, then I sell to this guy, and then this guy. And like this was kind of like in a weird way, I think G2A's point regarding, if we don't do it, somebody else would. But the problem is how they do it is still very much, a very murky, quote unquote, it's legal, air quotes, kind of thing.
Yeah, with I mean, G2A could easily put a stop to most of this
Oh,
too.
yeah.
They just if they see you selling fraudulent, they just get your IP, they get your PC hardware information.
Hmm.
They know who you are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They have your bank card.
Oh,
Because they
yeah.
got to send the money to you some way, or your PayPal or whatever, which has your bank card. They still have your bank card at that point.
Hmm.
Um, Unless you're going to have PayPal send you a check through snail mail kind of thing.
Yeah.
They pretty much guaranteed almost 100% have your bank card information. So they would very easily be able to be like, yeah, this person sold a fraudulent key. They're never selling here again.
Yeah. And
Very,
but
very easily.
but of course that causes the other problem. How easy is it to create a new account? Because I'm sure anyone who gets banned off of G2A just so they could get banned off of Twitch or YouTube, it takes what, 10 minutes to create a new email address?
Yeah, but the thing is, if they have
Mm-hmm.
your hardware information, if they have your hardware ID,
Mm-hmm.
they can. If you'd have to build a different computer basically to get that on there. You'd have to build a different computer or access from a different computer. And with them having your credit card information or your bank information, they're going to have to make a new bank account at the same time. So they're going to have to
Mm-hmm.
make a new computer and new bank account
Yeah.
to attempt it again. And that's like so much trouble and so much money that
Mm-hmm.
selling a key becomes a waste of
Yeah.
anything.
It's kind of almost as similar to what I remember Blizzard did with hackers and dupers in, I think it was like Diablo 2, Diablo 3, where they don't just ban that copy of that game. They ban your whole entire Blizzard account. So all your other stuff that gets attached to it, goodbye. You're not getting that stuff back. And again, while that may sound very extreme, I think that has to be the answer. Because as you just said, like, if they get access to their bank account information, or if you make it hard for people to do something, chances are they're not going to do it. It's just simple psychology there. But
Yep.
it's the same thing, like we could easily equate this to asset flippers and a lot of stuff on Steam. The whole idea of Steam Direct being $100, for people who want to do this like as like their quote unquote business, $100 is what, like a slap on the wrist to them. They can put out
It's
multiple games.
broke.
Yeah.
I think the $100 is a good point, but like they need to I don't think that needs to go up.
Mm-hmm.
I but like
Yeah.
they need to take that $100 and do something with it, and take that $100 and actually pay somebody to basically do a Steam review of your game kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, you can pay like several people and give them a free key, for probably $30, and then they still got $70 to put in their pocket, and they could easily weed out, like they see an asset flip. I mean, that's going to be pretty obvious within like the first 30 seconds, and they're like, "Yep, nope." They see, they see a really low quality game. Maybe it takes them 10 minutes, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. But again, that requires them to actually do that, and that could be even harder. Now, there's one. Oh, go ahead.
I mean, there's probably several people that would do it for free. They could just, have like a bunch of free people. Hey, do you want to get free Steam keys? Just come here, sign up, and do it all like we're all the people don't communicate with each other. They just communicate directly to Steam. So if somebody comes in there and they're biased in some way or whatever, it doesn't hurt the game. Several people are reviewing the same game kind of thing, and just, giving it the quality check and everything. They get a free key. They get a free game out of it. And, that's their payment, and it costs Steam literally nothing.
Yep.
And it costs the developers a game, but, a game key rather. But, I would rather give out 10 free games than $100.
Yeah.
Cash.
And there's one final thing that I want to show before we'll end this topic and we'll move on to our next section. But let me get this working here. Hopefully you guys can see it. Now, this is a tweet that Mike Rose posted about when G2A kind of went after them regarding the senders. So they got the information, like G2A was saying, oh, we'll give you an audit on all of our keys and stuff like that. So he got this information from them. So the game sold 226 copies through the service, which again, for some of you watching this, that doesn't sound like a whole lot of stuff. But when you look at these numbers, some weird things are happening. One person sold 45%, almost half of those keys came from one guy. You can see this person selling 102 copies of the game for $13 a piece. And he has this very lovely question. How did one person get 100 copies of a game that he could sell for $13 a pop? I think we kind of know the answer to that question there.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like this is, and what I just said is a very big point that the consumer, I think, needs to be educated on this matter. Because as you see at the top here, 226 copies, for some people watching this, is like, who the hell cares? You didn't get like 5,000 copies sold? But
and here's the thing on that is, I don't know how much Descenders is, but let's just say $20, right, for the point of argument.
I think I can look this.
So if it's a $20 game and they got 226 copies, that is $4,520. I mean, do you care now that it's a little bit bigger number?
And here's the page for it. So it's normally $25.
Oh, that's even worse.
This person is undercutting them by about $13, or I'm sorry, about $12 a copy there. And again, the money that this person is making off of G2A, none of that is getting to the developer. And like when we talk about like this, like it seems very cut and dry, but there are plenty of people, I'm sure plenty of YouTubers and streamers who will defend the use of G2A.
Yeah, I mean, like when we're talking about 25, that's $5,650 being stolen from the developers.
Mm-hmm. And that, again, when we talk about independent development, that is not chunk change. I know a lot of people like to equate the game industry with making, hundreds of thousands of copies sold, games bringing in $2, $3, $4 million. But when you're a small time or you're an independent developer, $5,000 can mean a whole lot to you in terms of what you're able to do next.
Yeah, that's like 20 times what Chromasia made in its entire lifetime.
Mm-hmm. It's one of those cases where the solution, I think, is very simple. You've laid out several of them over the stream here in terms of better monitoring and actually punishing people. The only problem, though, is will somebody actually do that? Because my inner pessimist is like screaming at me right now. What's going to happen is that they will enact those changes and would affect somebody legitimately, and then everybody will make a huge sting about it, and we'll go back to the way it was before.
Yep. Even if Steam would even if any of these people would move on it, especially Steam, they'll probably do it in the wrong way. Especially Steam. Steam has a tendency to do things in the wrong method, kind of thing. I don't think they mean any ill by it, but I don't think they understand exactly what kind of impact they have, kind of thing, or something. I don't see them as malicious. I see them as they just don't know for some reason, which is like almost unfathomable that they could, that Steam does not know Steam, kind of thing. Steam doesn't know the gaming market, but there is lots of things that they're rather clueless on, even though they have the information right there in front of their eyes.
Yeah.
And it's baffling how that could be that way.
If you're looking for a book on design, my first title, 20 Essential Games to Study, is out now. It is available where most books are sold, and it comes in paper, hardcover, or digital copies. This is the perfect book for anyone interested in learning about game design, whether you are a student, enthusiast, or just a fan. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed things, be sure to do all the liking and subscribing that the kids are doing these days. Check out our Discord channel link down below where we hang out and chat game design, and come back later tonight for our regular streamings. But that's it, and tune in for more great content here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games.